You know, so that's what it boils down to. You know, we're in this society. It ain't like it used to be, hooray for me and the hell on you. I got mine and I'm not worried about you. Just like these bums, all they did was live on welfare. You kept them. They bummed from all these churches and everything. Got all this money and never went back, and they never went. I checked with these preachers, call me here all the time. You know, wanting to know where they're at. I said, try the tattoo parlors. I said, you know, try Walmart. Oh, any restaurant, they're there. I said, they're going home. I said they made a Jed and a Jethro out of them. Yeah. That's all I can tell you. You know what I mean? But, you know, like I say, well, anyhow, that's just the way it is. I'm unfortunate that I got stuck with this. Now, would you want to look at that thing over there? See, you got to remember one thing, too. This depreciates your thing. There's no way you can't even sell this for a couple reasons. Number one, the banks are not lending money on any. Because what you've done, if you realize this, I'm sure, if you did any research, when you sign that lease, they're like a co-signer. You know what I mean? Call them whatever you want, co-leasee or something. And if you go to borrow money, that's up to the courthouse. That bank wants, hey, you better get home on the range recourse is here to co-sign. What's home on the recourse going to tell you? Go take a flying what at a flying donut, right? So that's the thing you put in. You know, that's just the situation. You know, and your house is devaluated. And like I told the guy, I said, look, buddy, I said, I'm going to call my homeowners insurance. Oh, whoa. I thought he was like Fred Sanford, going to have the big one. So I'm going to call homeowners insurance. So what for? I said, what happens if they find out you got a pit bull, a bomb in your yard, or you're in a flood zone? They cancel you, right? I said, what do you think they're going to do to you? You run a big 30-inch line here through my property. I said, you just created a bomb. Now, do you think that my homeowners is going to insure me? You leave me out on a limb, buddy. I said, oh, no. I said, wait a minute. I'm going to see what they have to say. He said, why? I said, hey, I'm just David, you're Goliath. Let Goliath fight Goliath. That makes it a little more fair, don't it? So, like I say, I've been to all these meetings. We had a big meeting up here at the fire hall. All the weeping widows were in there. Their nerves were shot. Their cats were dying. They couldn't sleep. You name it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't long. I got a new name for their location without jeopardizing myself. They got a hold of the Loophole lawyer. Loophole lawyer took them down South Joint. You know what I'm talking about? Where their headquarters. Home on the range. Took them down. Next thing you know, there was only 4 of us at the next meeting. Only 4 people who signed. No more weeping. So I said, no more weeping widows. Let them cry all they want. I'm not going to shed a tear. I'm not going to go fight for them. And then they betray you. They don't need you no more. Mm-hmm. You understand? You read it in the paper. One, the fiery redheads taking on the big ones. Well, they got where she cried up. She called me and said, hey, my husband died. They cut my pension, blah, 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 And I guess the worst wheel on the wagon gets the most grease, huh? But see, they got the boss card, and you know what it's called? Money. I just talked to a guy yesterday who lives in a town down the road here. 12 of them polluted. These women got skin rash so bad they can't. Are you aware of that? Yeah. And he told me, and he's talking through a hole in here. He had his voice box. I said, how about your well? He said, I can't drink it. I said, it's polluted. He said, he went like this. There's 12. I said, okay, I don't want to, you know what I mean. But anyhow, it was on that commentary with Moore. What's his name? Chris Moore. Did you see that where he went there? Was you there?
I was there with him.
Okay. Then you know all about it. Okay. See, I knew that I have, but see, they threw me a curveball. They said somebody over in Woodrow. That's not Woodrow. That's called Ray. Somebody over in Woodrow got sand in their well. Where are you going to get the sand from? These big trucks that are bringing it in here, big time. So anyhow, my uncle died, and this guy that I'm telling you about, he come in there. He just had this taken out, and he had some girl with him. And they were talking over there, and then I went over, and he pointed to me, and she showed me a list of these chemicals. And I said, well, what's that for? He said, that's in my well. That's when they drilled on the state park. I'm sure you knew the situation. And he said that.
Is that by the reservoir out there?
Yeah, that not the state. That's county park. Okay. I mean, that Cross Creek Park, Cross Creek Lake. And he said, "You know anything about these chemicals?" I said, "I know one thing. I don't want to be drinking them." You know what I mean? But I said, "Well, who is the one that got the sand in their well?" And he told me up the road. You know, the guy that said, "You better go down to the schoolhouse. There's a lot of kids down there."
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's a couple other people around him in the neighborhood who also have been finding sand in their water.
Yeah. Now, you know what I told the guy here when he tried to tell me to come from the coal mine? I said, "You better send a letter to the North Pole." He said, "Why is that?" I said, "Thank Santa Claus. That's the only one the person I know could have brought it here. Who else could have?" You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to give a stupid statement to get a sensible point across. You know what I mean? You know, if you guys didn't put that in there, then it has to be Santa Claus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He didn't leave them the ashes, the bad kids' ashes. He left them with sand in their well instead of coal in their presents. You know. But it's getting worse. I mean, the traffic here, and then they come up here, up top of the hill here, just whining out like they're going to the Indianapolis 500. Then they get to the top here, they hit the brakes. And they must have took their walkie-talkies and said they got horn signals now. Beep, 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 beep. You know, so I'm not even going to interpret it. I'm tired of it. I'm sick of it. His assistant called me today, and I said, "You better do something about it, buddy." I said, I'm taking it like I told him at the picnic here Sunday. I said, "First of all, see, I'm not the kind of guy to take you in a corner. If you screw me up, I'm not the kind to take you in a corner, and say, hey, you know, why do you call me back? I'm going to wait to where there's a whole bunch of people, and I'm going to say, hey, you forget to call me? Oh, yeah, well, I'm going to forget to vote next time, but I won't one step further. I said, you know what? I'm going to remember to vote. I'm going to vote for your Republican counterpart." Boy, he didn't. He gave me that sheep-killing dog look, and I said, "I mean it. If you don't believe me, you come up there. Come on in there with me." I said, "I'm getting tired of this. You're the guy that sent me the letter, and I can show you the letter, that said, hey, you got any problems with these drilling companies, blah, 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 just give me a call, Representative." You know what I mean? All that was a smoke screen. You know how I got hooked up with him in the first place? This is a classical. I just had a birthday in May, okay? I get this card. It says, from Representative White. And it had a whole list of squares. You want a map of Pennsylvania? You want trivia questions? It must have been 24 of them. So I made Bone Square at the end, and I put a check in that one, okay? And I said, how about this gas drilling? I said, how about this gas drilling in my township? Then below where it had comments, I says, just happened that day they had in the newspaper about all the money they give to him, Sobely, who's our governor, Rendell, mm-hmm. 2.2 million for lobbying. And I put it in there. I says, they had comments. I said, how about the birthday party? How about the birthday gift you just got from Home on the Range Recourses? And I just put some dollar signs. And I'll tell you what, I went up to the post office up here. The next day, that was on a Tuesday, I went up there because I didn't have a stamp. Told a woman, when's this go out? She said, comes out 5 o'clock. He called me the next day at 1. How in the hell did he get that letter? That woman had to take it over to him. He couldn't. I don't think the post office is that fat. But boy, did he call me on that one. Guess what his excuse was? I said, what business you have taking this money anyhow? He said, oh, I'm the only one that voted against putting this severance tax on them. And, you know. I said, hey, that's no reason for taking that money. Then here I come find out this girlfriend or wife of his, did you know, she works for Range Resources. You talk about collusion. Oh, well, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? That's home cooking, I guess. You know what I mean? They call that fraternizing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, you know, they got these guys where they need them. The economy's bad. And that's what caused all of this, too. They were like an undertaker. They preyed on human misery. So, I went to a lot of meetings, and you know, and I try to tell people, and I hear every excuse in the world, like, well, if you don't sign, they're going to come anyhow. You know what I told that guy when he says, when he come here and he told me if you don't sign, he says they got some kind of, a unity law or something. He said, you know, he said, He said, you don't have to sign. He says, we can go underneath you anyhow. I said, don't you let me find out, buddy.